For those just joining us, this is actually a Gambia Center for Research and Policy Studies seminar. And today we are actually looking at definitely issues of ethics and morality in our workplaces. And we've already had Bishop Banimanga in his first submission discussing the issues of diligence, discipline, and drive in our workplaces. And we're going to ask him a second question on that. And Banasawane, doctor, talked about compliance, accountability, and probity in our workplaces. And you've just had Dr. Raymond Jata submission on employer-employee obligations in workplaces. And earlier we had our Professor Omar Jah actually on justice, equity, and fairness in our workplaces. So these are issues that definitely are confronting all of us, employers, employees, and also affecting the stakeholders who are the consumers of whatever is done in our workplaces, whether it is service that we deliver or products. Thank you very much for that. Bishop, if we're still with us, I come to your second question for you to share your thoughts and experiences on development approach and conduct of ethics in our organizations to establish an environment of change, creativity, and innovation. Over to you, Bishop.
Thank you very much, and thank you to my fellow panelists for all your submissions. This is beautiful. Now, with regards to my thoughts and experiences on the developmental approach, I think the first thing we need to realize is we need to go back and ask ourselves to what extent do we want to develop and how far do we want to see ourselves. Now, on paper, like one of my co presenters have said, we all acknowledge we want to develop. But if we need to take a definite step to say we want to develop to this extent, then we need to take proactive steps to go to that level. Now, let's look at, in relation to all what has been said, let's look at what is the value of remuneration that is going on in our nation. What are the things that are pushing for corruption, which is not helping us to develop? What are the code of ethics that we have? Like has been stated, we have beautiful laws that are kept in the archives, that are kept in some library, and most of the people in the workforce do not know. So we have to look at all of that. How do we clear that? I think we should have a developmental plan. The first, relation to our developmental quest, where do we want to go? Now, most times as Gambians, we will always say, oh, we want to be at this level, we want to be at this level. But requisite energy to be where we want to be. If we don't put in the requisite energy and the requisite get the right people at the right place, and also do what we do within the concept of the fear of God, it is only going to be a dream. If you have in an institution only one person who's ethical, the rest are all not ethical, the possibility that that ethical person could be coerced to being like another person or like every other person is very, very high. But if all of us decide that we are going to be ethical, then those who are not ethical would be forced to join in and to be like one of us. Now, the problem in Gambia is, who is policing the police? Who is policing those in authority? Who are those who are watching us? Now, I heard from Dr. Banda, I think, yes. We have the Auditor General. The Auditor General is supposed to be independent and they're supposed to do their work. But if you're paying those who are within the department peanuts, except they have the fear of God, they are going to be cursed to be corrupt. And consequently, instead of them being a check on those who are doing wrong, they are going to be participants in the wrong. And then our nation will never be corrected. It is a simple fact. You go to the police, that should be the epitome of rule and law. you want to change, transfer a car from someone that I bought it for. On paper, it's $500. Get a car from Dr. Ja, and we want to do a transfer. It should be about $500, $600. But I can pay to get my papers. But I can pay 2,000, 3,000 in 1 hour. I get my papers. If all of us decide to go that way, we are enhancing corruption. But if we all decide that we're not going to do that way, and if we decide to report the matter to the authorities and they take the right will do what they're supposed to do, then the work will go on. But if it is a known fact that some of us who are on top are doing everything humanly possible to enhance and enrich ourselves, then the ones down will say, Mantam Hanana Madaf, let me also do what they're doing so that I will be better. So there is no form of discipline around us. It is interesting that when Gambians leave our jurisdiction and fly out of Gambia, most of our people are ethical. They do what is right.
The real problem here is when you are trapped in a chaotic system. You see, when you he talk about the Gambians being very good when they are in London or when they are elsewhere. This is the issue of system. When you live in system and you become systemic, so the moment you come from that systemic into chaos, you are rejected automatically. You come to Africa, for example, in many offices, when you come with very committed plan to do something good, you come from a systemic environment. Now you come and enter the chaos. When you enter the chaos, you will be rejected automatically. Why? Because the moment you enter this office and you want to do something good, then the system itself will reject you. And then now, after one day, second day, third day, you resist. After 3 days, your nerves get you are in problem. Then you have to at least now say, okay, you yield to the system. And now the challenge is, where do we start now? Where do we start in this vicious cycle? Where do we start? It's like where we have Lee Kuan Yew of Singapore started. In the absence, of course, of what we call an African role model, because in ASEAN, they at least have an ASEAN role model in Japan. Any ASEAN country will say, okay, Japan is making it, why not me? The problem of Africa is that there is an absence of an African role model. For example, if Gambia want to develop, as far as the African identity, based on our fundamentals, where is the African developmental role model? It's also a problem. With that absence and the availability of chaos, as the bishop is saying, when you come from system, enter a chaos, the system will reject you. So a Gambian in London or a Gambian in America is performing very well because the system allows him and the laws does not allow him not to function. Once you come to Africa, then is the problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. It's like a conducive atmosphere to be created.
Yes.
For people to perform and actually bring out their optimum. And if people have normalized the abnormal, the wrong person becomes right and the right person becomes wrong.
Yes, that's very good.
It's like ejection and rejection.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you very much, Prof. Bishop, your submission, please, before we move on to the next. Sorry, you're muted, Bishop.
I've appreciated some of the comments that have been suggested. Yes, I've appreciated some of the comments that have been suggested on the comment page. The developed world that we are suggesting as of right now might not be as religious as they are presently, but they have a history of religiosity in time past. And it is on the basis of their religiosity that they necessarily develop the structures that they're operating on now. Now, we claim that we are a religious people right now. So it means that our religion should be able to provoke us and should be a catalyst for us to develop the necessary structures that we need. Now, it is not about what is happening in the West, it's about what do we want to do. And if collectively we all decide that we want to be a developing nation and we are going to premise our development on our religiosity, then it is possible for us to do right. But suffice it to say that sometimes I think Our religiosity is just a fake that we show around. What we do and what we are is really far away from our religiosity. And that is the reality that sometimes is plaguing our country. Now, if all of us, I repeat, if all of us who have all the expertise that we have decide to do right by our religion and by our faith in God, then our nation will move on. But if we decide that it is only, as I say in one of the duties, that it is only going to be a ceremonial thing, you go to court, hold the Bible, I promise I'll say everything and do everything that is truthful, and then you go and do the opposite, then I'm sorry, your religiosity will have to be questioned. So, with regards to morality and with regards to what we can do, it should be a personal decision. And I'm suggesting the personal decision, even if those who are on down decide to do it, it should come from up. Because if we all decide that we're going to do what is right, and we see those who are on top doing what is wrong and doing it in broad daylight and saying nothing is going to come out of it, then those who are down will probably be challenged to do the same. And the nation will never go on. All we will have is a lot of lamentation, and those lamentations will not take us anywhere. It is about time. Like I said in my earlier submission, we all takuligay, takusindiga, and move our nation forward. And I want to believe our religious books could help us do that and do it ethically. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bishop. Liggéey jotna Gambia amna bopam. Nañ takku ñu liggéey Tesito. Thank you very much. Appreciated. The corrupt, the corrupted, and the corruptible are the ones promoting corruption. Yes, people may be corrupt, but if you can be corrupted and you are corruptible, honestly, you are only promoting corruption. Thank you very much. We really appreciate Bishop Manga. We move on to Banna Sawane, Prof, on the second question. Now, discuss the public service code as well as its impact on staff at work and the behavior of employees to the organizations they serve. It's like the financial instruction as well as the general orders, among
Yes,
other code of conduct within institutions.
yes. Thank you very much, Bizenti. Actually, the code of conduct for public servants or civil servants is part of the revised general orders, code of conduct, and public service rules and regulations. The way employees, so we ask ourselves, are we really complying with the code of conduct as enshrined in the general orders of the Gambia Civil Service? What is the problem? Because I see someone commented that we should popularize the general orders and the code of conduct and the public service rules and regulations where there is minimal awareness among public servants or civil servants regarding the document. And some are saying no matter how we popularize it, how we inform the population about the existence of these legal instruments or documents in our civil service, yet still it will be difficult to change people's attitude to work, because it is very clear how civil servants must behave within the civil service, within the public service. The Code of Conduct talked about what constitutes gross misconduct and what constitutes misconduct and what constitutes misdemeanor. And it's clear that a gross misconduct, as stated or defined in the Code of Conduct, is that a conduct that seriously damages the credibility of both the staff member itself, that is the civil servant himself or herself, and the civil service. So if you behave or you misbehave in a way that lacks integrity and that warrants dishonesty of the behaving person, this is what the Code of Conduct describes as gross misconduct. And it is the failure by the superior or the senior to take reasonable steps or actions to penalize the concerned civil servants. We have this document, very important document in our midst in the civil service. I don't know why are people behaving differently. Why are people breaching the principles of this code of conduct in our civil service? Is it because of lack of awareness about the principles, the tenets of the document, or is it because people just overlook the document and just behave anyway, anyhow? Right. These are questions that we ourselves need to answer. But I think it's not only due to lack of awareness about the existence of the document. It has to do with our own attitude, our behavior. I think there must be complete overhaul of our attitudes in the society, because if we have good upbringing in our homes, good attitudes, we are trained to have integrity. We are trained to be honest. And these, I think, we can carry to our public service. We can carry to our mainstream civil service. But on the contrary, even Gambians are superb at drafting and creating documents. We have the Constitution. We have so many policy documents that govern our civil service, that govern our public service. I would say it is not just due to lack of awareness or due to lack of reading these documents that makes people to behave differently, that makes people to be corrupt, that makes people to be to be nepotistic or have conflict of interest in the way we do things in our public service or civil service. So the code of conduct is very clear on how civil servants must conduct themselves, and any breach of these codes of conduct, whether for the mainstream civil service or whether it is code of conduct for corporate governance for our public enterprises or state-owned enterprises, is very clear. The issue is people blatantly overlook the provisions in these documents, the provisions in the constitutions, the provisions in so many policy documents, and then we behave otherwise. And this is not the way forward for our civil service, for our public service. Corruption is rampant. Is it because they are not aware that the code of conduct, prohibits being corrupt, being, having conflict of interest or misappropriation of public funds? No, the very people who are doing this are aware of the existence of these tenets of the code of conduct, not because they are not aware. In fact, it's just blatant, blatantly ignoring the provisions in these code of conduct. So I think it boils down back to our individual characters, our individual behavior. Without it, it becomes difficult. No matter what sort of policy documents we craft, we bring in here, if the people themselves do not change their attitudes, it will become very difficult for us to have to have a civil service, to have civil servants who are clean, who are ethical in their conducts, who are compliant with our legal instruments to move this country forward.
Thank you very much, Prof. We'll come back to you because we have actually our viewers who have asked questions and some would need further clarification on some of the presentations made. But let's move to Dr. Raymond Jatta. Raymond, as every employee needs to follow a code of conduct, again, code of conduct, and work as expected, do we as a country and people follow ethical standards and procedures to ensure quality delivery, efficiency, and effectiveness to make sure that best practice and excellence is promoted? Your thoughts on this, please. Dr. Raymond, are you with us? Well, seems we're having issues of connectivity. Prof. Omarja, are you there?
Yes.
Brilliant. Okay. I know Dr. Raymond may come, but we are looking at issues of people following code of conduct
Yeah.
as expected in workplaces and following ethical standards and procedures to ensure that efficiency, effectiveness, and quality delivery is more or less promoted in institutions. You've worked in the Gambia, now you're working outside of the Gambia. Give us your own, comparative analysis of the thing. You've talked about Gambians coming from outside to the Gambia, while they were high performers or high achievers outside, but when they come to the country here, you wonder what has actually changed.
Thank you very much. There are two levels, and within our discussions, we have the rule of law and the rule of ethics. So the rule of ethics, in fact, touch deeper inside the individual, that even in the absence of law, they perform well because they know that their conscience will not allow them to do something which is contradictory to the nature of their job. I think we have to go gradual first. When you come to the Gambia in the offices, in fact, we are still at the beginning of respect for the rule of law itself. Because the rule of law cannot be respected if the rule of law is not implemented. For example, we have to make sure now that those who are found wanting must be punished. There must be a price to pay for those who are corrupt. There is a price to pay for those who are found negligent in hospital. And the rule of law must be respected first, and that will take you into respecting the rule of ethics. For example, now when you go to many European countries or even other countries, you see somebody driving during the night, he reaches a stop. No car is coming, no one is coming, but he stops. And he's a Gambian. For example, I have been in other countries, like they drive, a Gambian driving me in the States at night, arriving at the corner, there's a stop, and then no car, nothing, but they stop. They really respect that, even though there's no law, no camera. What has prompted them to now become refined? Why? Because there is this implementation of the rule of law. Nobody is higher, no lower, no higher, no major, no minor. Everybody is equal to law, and that will create an environment to push people to the refinement to the next level. And I think this is definitely something needed. But before that, you have to have the standard first. So definitely, and the standards are there. I think when you look at the Gambian civil service, the Gambian civil service, definitely you look at it, you have very good rules are there. And compared with many African countries, especially after the independence and the First Republic, definitely there are many, many rules. But deterioration of the respect of those rules are part of what is encroaching on the development of ethical dimension in the people. And I think then a gradual implementation of the rule of law will now push people into the next level of making sure now that you have to respect the ethical rules. The bishop says something very important. Sometimes I'm baffled, and you feel like, as a Christian or as a Muslim, as a conscious Christian, as a conscious Muslim, sometimes you feel embarrassed when they say, okay, you are a religious society and you are retarded. So the answer is very difficult. Why is it that those countries that are not very much committed to the book, to the letter of the law, they are developed? And why? Because we only look at the letter of the law. We don't look at the spirit. And we look at the Christian by label, not by content. Muslim by label, not by content. This is the problem. But we have to go we have to be Muslim by content, not by just label. We have to be Christian by content, not by label. Once that is happening, then we will be able to untrap ourselves from the colonial imposition, because we have to understand that our laws are also colonial. We call ourselves Muslims or Christian, but the laws that are ruling the Gambia is the law from somewhere. How do you untrap yourself from that? Definitely, then you have to now act as a Muslim by content, act as a Christian by content, not by label. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Really, this is great. And I know we really are bereft of time, but the conversation will continue from here. I hope when people later on actually watch this, deliberations, presentations, they may really reach out to you individually or actually ask for another webinar to be organized to take this to another level. I was laughing because sometimes when you want to see the level of indiscipline, a disregard for rules and regulations in this country, just be on the road. When there is traffic, you see people leaving actually the highway and sometimes causing a lot of accident, and trying to definitely go before all others. It's like we don't seem to follow that law and order, even if it is not there. But know that this person was before you. You go to the bank, people are queuing. Somebody will just come from somewhere and just actually, break the queue and go and want to be definitely attended to first because of whatever reason. So all these things, as you said, should be our conscience guiding us and not any other law or rule anywhere telling you do this or do that, but be guided by your conscience. Thank you very much for that. So let's allow our own uh, participants following us to really maybe ask us questions. Here I have seen Mam Sise with us, John Demba, Masane Jalo, Peter Omendi, Professor Babu Karba, Lamin Jaju, Jajability, glad to see you around. Sirifo Sise Wiyetamba, all the way in India, among others. So this is really great. We know, Dr. Bojang Keba, thank you very much. Sankaranka, good to have you on board, among others. This is great. I know we may not be able to answer all your questions or your concerns, but I hope and pray that we'll have many more of such to be able to really address some of these issues that we are all confronted with. Yes, people may know these things, but it's good to be reminding them. But sometimes some people, they just don't know because the institutions are there and people just go by routine processes. What actually is happening in the office instead of what should be happening in offices. So we go to, I think, a question by Dr. Bojang. Dr. Bojang was talking about morality. He said, with regard to morality, is there any utility utility to the officers of the state being sworn in using the Quran or the Bible, since these religious books will not be there, their guide in the execution of their duties. Prof, you just talked about it. Most of us hide behind the cloak of religion, but actually the spirituality in us is
Yeah.
not there. So Dr. Bojan wants to know, why do people actually use the Bible or the Quran to be sworn in, to say they are going to execute their duties without fear or favor, affection, or ill will? But in the end, you realize they are not living by those things they professed whilst being
Yeah.
sworn in.
I think what happened is that we are religion by custom rather than by intellectual depth. You see, religion is more of a value than a name or a badge. Our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was running from Mecca to Medina, in fact, he ran from his brothers. He didn't run from disbelief, from associating Allah, but he ran from injustice. He ran from injustice. When the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked the first delegation from Mecca to go to Najashi, to the Christian, to the Abyssinia, you know that Islam entered Africa before it entered Medina. The Prophet now allowed the first delegation of companions to migrate from Mecca, their birthplace, to Africa, to be hosted by a Christian king. They were running not from disbelief, but from injustice. You know, the more you are just, the more you are religious, the more you respect people, the more you respect time, the more you put it on the platform of reality, then the more you are a Muslim. Then you go to the mosque praying hundreds of times, but then when people live with you 3 days, they hate you. What is that type of Islam? You go and pray for hundreds of times in the mosque, but then you cannot live with someone 3 days except they hate you, right? Because you are not. So that is why the issue is more of a content. It's more of what you give to people in terms of peace, what you give to people in terms of justice, what you give to people in terms of fairness on the platform of reality, that is what defines you as a Muslim, I think, or as a Christian, than when you are attached to the literal book like a Quran or the Bible.
Thank you very much, Prof. Dr. Raymond Jatta, are you with us? Well, we
Yes,
still
I'm
need.
here with you, Vicente.
Oh,
I was,
brilliant. Good. Yeah,
yeah,
you were
I was.
actually to talk to us on your own slide, which Prof came into buttress. But if you do have anything as regards the employees also in an institution, as regards some of us cheating our institutions, people are actually given working hours, but we spend most of those working hours doing personal things instead of things that are there for the institution. You know what I'm talking about. If you are asked to report to work by 8, some come to work by 10 o'clock and they give excuses, lack of transportation and other things. And if you are to close by 4, you get to some offices by 12, they are already out of office. So at the end of the day, the institution would actually be suffering, which means the taxpayers also are suffering, and the services and the service that was to be offered would not actually be offered, thus affecting our productivity and efficiency and effectiveness in the delivery of the service.
So yeah, that's that's. I think that's everyone. That is one thing that everyone have lived here in the Gambia. So I give an example of an office that I was working in. We were two. I was the most junior. Um, so most of the work I was just doing, and the individual was my boss. And for him, for let me use him because they say Satan is a him. Um, so instead of even adding value to the job, most of the time the individual was on the phone making calls, and immediately he finished all the calls, he's gone to the market buying things and selling. So it was really that bad. So for me, I think this culture of performance-based monitoring and rewarding system is something that we should really think about. Maybe at the beginning it will not be very smooth, but I think we should begin from somewhere. And I think within the country we have enough capacity that will be able to set up a system like that. You know, Start from maybe at institutional level, going down to the individual, so that at the end of the day, we are guided or we are motivated by the results or the value add that we are putting in our organizations. So I think we need to start that, and I believe we have capacity to be able to start a system like that. Thank you.
I am sorry. I am sorry. Thank you very much, Dr. Jatta. As I said, we go to a question actually asked by Lamin Jatta. I trust his judgeability. He said the Gambia has one of the finest work policy vis-a-vis the general orders. Yet the generality of government employees know very little about the import of the document. Bana Sawane, Prof, this is yours. Can you suggest what can be done to popularize this document and even internalize it? Not just popularizing it, but internalizing it. The general orders as well as the financial instruction.
Yes, thank you very much, Vicente and Jaja. Thank you very much for that question. I think awareness campaign on the existence of the document and conducting seminars in-house and these government ministries as well as government departments would go a long way in helping people to know about the existence of the document and also internalizing the tenets of these codes of conduct or the principles of the codes of conduct is one thing that's a big challenge for our civil servants, because complying with these legal instruments, policy documents of our institutions or civil service is a problem, it's a challenge, it's a big challenge. And like I said, that has to do with starting with home training, training from home. because we have all read these documents. We know, yes, it is true that some do not know about the existence of these documents, but some really know about these documents. The people who are even violating or breaching the principles of these documents, whether be it the Constitution of the Republic of the Gambia or be it Code of Conduct of the Civil Service, revised General Orders, Code of Conduct, and Public Service Rules and Regulations. For some, it's not the question of not knowing about its existence, not knowing about what is embedded in there, but it's the question of whether to comply or not. And compliance with these documents, must must deal with the character of the individual. This is my problem. People know about it, yet still they breach. So I think conducting seminars, awareness campaigns, workplaces, ministries, departments, and the home training as well, will go a long way in observing these policy documents. It's not just about the general orders, the revised general orders, Code of Conduct, and Public Service Rules and Regulations. Actually, they are together, right, in one document. So I think home training and a complete overhaul of attitudes in the society would go a long way in helping us to enforce these policies. But again, the problem in the Gambian society is enforcement of policy documents. We can craft beautiful documents, beautiful policies, but to comply with them, to enforce them, is a challenge. Reverend talked about policing of the police. And I think that is also quite important in helping us to enforce some of our policy documents. But be exemplary in character also. Our heads of institutions themselves need to be exemplary when we are enforcing these documents. But if the heads themselves, the managers, whatsoever nomenclature you occupy in that position, if you, the head, is not complying with the policy documents, what do you expect from your juniors, your junior officials? It becomes really a big challenge, and this is really a challenge in our society. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much. Thank you very much, Prof. Banasawane. I know really now we've almost spent 2 hours. I've seen my very own former health girl joining us, Aisha Young. Thank you very much, my boss. Glad to see you around. Professor Babu Karba actually asked a question. I think we will actually just bring that and conclude with it whilst we allow our panelists to share with us their final thoughts for today. Babu Karba said, "Let me be the devil's advocate here. It seems that the developed world, which is less religious, have more accountability, justice, ethics, among others, in their workplaces than us. This seems to contradict what the bishop and Professor Omar just said about fearing our Lord, Allah, the Creator, rather than learning the law." Bishop, are you there with us? Bishop Manga? All right. Anyway, so let's allow the panelists. Prof, are you there with us?
Yes,
Prof,
yes, I'm there.
Brilliant. So Babu Karba there actually, well, aligning with what you've said, that our religiosity is not actually helping us in our developmental drive.
Yeah, I think Dr. Ba, thank you again. I'm happy that Dr. Ba is around. I'm very proud of him. You see, and this is the puzzle, Dr. Ba. This makes it embarrassing for you to talk about religion. But the puzzle can be decoded in the sense that in the West, don't think that the government of the West are also good. No, but the grassroots know their right. Your right is not given to you freely. Your right is snatched. So the people of the West, they are aware of their right and they fight and get it back. So that is why the government, they are not angels. They just give it like that. They are ethically good and they are religiously good. No, but the people in the West, they are aware of their rights and they fight for it. For example, you come to Africa, an ambulance, for example, will take a sick and then make some negligence thing, and then the sick will die, rather than you taking them to court. Then we do maslaha. There are many things that we can change from the grassroots, from ourselves. We should not only blame, for example, the government for not doing this, but we should also blame ourselves. So if the governments in the West, we find them, to be very much committed to the rules of law. Why? Because those that are under them, on whom the rules are applied, they know they are right, and they will snatch it from them, and that is why they take it. That's number one. Number two, when you come to the Muslim and Christian countries, I'm telling you now that these people, they are there, but the laws that are governing them, they are the law from the Western society. Is not they don't allow Christianity to rule from A to Z. They will never allow Islam to rule from A to Z. If you allow Islam to rule from A to Z, now you can blame now the results of that. But now you allow Islam to rule from A to B, and the rest is somebody's law, because the system is the one that will make it very difficult for you as Babukar, Dr. Ba, and me to implement what is necessary as religious say. So these are the problems that we have, and I hope that unless something very critical is done, it's going to be very difficult for us to really untrap ourselves from this reality.
Thank you very, very much, Prof. We really appreciate. So, viewers and all those who may be listening to us through other medium, I'm afraid we have come to the end of this presentation, and we really appreciate all of you. I have seen Margaret Lumo joining us, as well as Modu Ture. Mr. Ture, you're welcome, because you have a role to play to give a vote of thanks at the end of the day. But before actually we call it a day, I would want to ask our panelists to share with us their final thoughts for today. Not your final words, but your final words for today. Because we need you around so that we'll continue moving this country, the continent, and humanity to another level. Reverend, our Bishop Manga, you are back, Bishop.
Yes, I'm sorry, my internet seems to be going on and on.
No. We really appreciate you giving us about 3 hours of your time, and that is enough. Thank you very much. So please, your final thoughts for today on the presentations, from yours to the others, to our viewers and those who may be following us later on after this session.
The book of James in the Bible suggests to us that let us not only be hearers of the word, but let us be doers of the word of God. In being doers of the word of God, we have an obligation first to God, second to nation, to our neighbor, and to ourselves. If all of us decide that we are going to do and implement our faith, so that we will not only showcase a face as being religious, but our religiosity is going to be implemented in what we do to God and in the name of God, to our neighbor, to country, and to ourselves, then within a very short period of time, our nation will be developed and we will be the envy of everyone. But if, on the other hand, we just want to be a rhetorical people who claim to be religious but are otherwise, our nation will only be a dream. Unfortunately, we do not pray that the latter will be our portion. We pray that we will all reflect our faith in what we do, so that our nation will be a better nation for us all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bishop. We really appreciate obligation to God, others, and self, which shows that work is part of worship. So if we are in our workplaces, let's know that we are worshiping God in whatever we do as we serve others. Thank you very much. Appreciated. Dr. Banna Sawane, are you with us?
Yes, I'm with you, Vicente. Thank you very much.
Final thoughts for today.
Yes, it all boils down to our characters, being faithful, being honest, being righteous. And what I have for the observers or listeners here is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran in Surah Al-Hujurat, Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. Inna Allah alimun kabir. The best, the most honored among you before Allah is the most righteous. We cannot be transparent. We cannot observe probity in our public institutions. We cannot be accountable if we are not fearful. And that becomes really a challenge for most of us in our institutions. Because if you fear Allah, you fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, definitely you will not breach rules and regulations of our institutions. You will obey these rules and regulations. So what I have for people is, let us fear Allah, and we'll be able to observe the principles of integrity, transparency, and accountability, and of course, probity of our public institutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Faithfulness, honesty, and righteousness to guide us in whatever we do. The fear of God is the beginning of worship. Thank you very much, Prof. Banna Sawane. Dr. Raymond Jata, are you with us? Sorry, I'm going to Raymond Jiba of Lenderhan. Raymond Jata. Doctor, are you there? Well, if not, Prof. Omar, are you with us, Prof?
Yes.
Thank you very much, sir. Your final thoughts for the day, and thank you very much for everything and being with us. I know it's almost late.
My final thoughts is to re-express my gratitude to you, Bizante. We work together very closely, and you are flourishing, and we are happy to see that. I'm also happy to really express my thanks to the organizers. For my former students, I am really, really proud because I'm looking back and seeing the legacy. And let me inform them that this is the beginning, because we have to be part of the miracle to break the vicious circle. We are in a vicious circle of not knowing where to start. If you want to develop Gambia, you want to develop Senegambia, you want to develop Africa, anywhere you go, you discover that you are trapped. Any solution somebody comes with is just another trap. But then there is this vicious circle that we have to break, and we have to be part of that miracle. And I think what you are doing now, don't take it light. This platform and what you are doing definitely can be the one that create that break that miracle. As I said before, as an employee or employer, no matter how much AI, artificial intelligence is there, no matter how much Internet of Things, no matter how much CCTV cameras, no matter how much clock in and clock out system, as long as your conscience is not clean, as long as that you understand that the one who monitors you is Allah in your work, and Allah is a party to that contract, then we are still doing lip service. That is why I end up by saying, in this age, increase your market value by increasing your skills. Sometimes we find that our employers are not giving us training. We keep, for example, blame. No, increase your value by working on yourself harder, and then increase your value to have employability, because those who are listening to us, many of us, or the majority, cannot be employed publicly. So try to find your own employability mechanism while you keep your religion with yourself and try to spread it. We thank you all. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam, Prof. Thank you very much, Jata. Well, not being able to get him, I think I'll invite Mr. Modu Ture to join us. Mr. Ture, are you there? Welcome, sir.
Yes, I'm here.
Good to see you.
Thank you very much.
Glad to know you're around. Thank you.
I think we have not seen physically for a while now. Well, thank you very much for this important role you have just played. I would say, as a what I call a closing remark, I would say that the Gambia Center for Research and Policy Studies was formed essentially to give an alternative policy option or policy thinking, and to also have an option for policymakers, decision makers to listen to. So in that regard, we had the vision to have a society where everyone realizes his or her potentials, and therefore, in that drive, we are running out some activities, and one of those activities is conducting seminars and public fora. So, why ethics and morality? This is important because, as one of the presenters have said, human resource is the most important resource that any nation has, and that's its people. And this human resource are essentially characterized by three things: the knowledge, the competencies, and the attitudes of these individuals. So we have discussed and think that in as much as we have people highly qualified, highly competent, but we are still not able to realize our development potential. And we continue to face a lot of challenges in the process. The other thinking came into to say that the issues of morality, ethics, and I would add professionalism are also important aspects that shapes the attitude, which is the third aspect of the human resource that could add value to what we do in our public institutions, and what we do to push our country's development efforts. And therefore, that is why we came in to select these respectable professionals in a way to kickstart a discourse on the issues of morality, ethics, and professionalism. In as much as we teach, we teach the necessary competencies and knowledge in universities and elsewhere, but very little is done towards issues of professionalism and ethics and morality. Is oftentimes left in the hands of the religious leaders to teach or to preach. But we are saying that we should start a national discourse on the issues of ethics and morality in our institutions, the issues of professionalism, in order to be able to change the development trajectory of our country. And I hope that the brilliant presentations that have been given is able to trigger this national discourse, but also trigger actions that will ensure that the issues of ethics, morality, and professionalism are not only discussed, but measures are also taken to ensure they are enhanced, entrenched, and popularized in our institutions. And by this, we hope that it would add value to the way we do things and the way we handle issues and activities in our public institutions. So therefore, I would join the chairman of the board, Dr. Buakarba, and the rest of the board members and the general membership to thank, and I want to name them. First of all, Mr. Vicente Gomez for moderating this forum, Bishop Bani Manga, Dr. Banna Sawene, Dr. Omar Jan, and also Dr. Raymond Jata for sparing time, despite your busy schedules, to come and deliberate on these important topics that we have all delivered on. And I also thank Sali Bojang, but also Binta Sise for being the architect behind the successful organization of this important forum. So once again, a big thank to all the presenters. We cannot thank you enough for your brilliant presentation, and we only hope that it will trigger a national discourse and actions towards improving our performance in our public institution. Thank you all for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Mr.